Hello friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and one of my favorite topics and one of your favorite topics is cutting tools. So let's discuss what to look for and what maybe not to look for in cutting tools. It's a really big thumb. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Here are some of my most used favorite cutting tools. They're in my truck, and they're in my truck for a reason. I didn't stage them here for this video. They just happen to be in my truck already because I use these all the time. This one right here is probably my favorite. I might be a little bit biased. I might be a little bit, skewed in my thinking, but this is the On3 machete designed by yours truly and made by Bear Forest Knives. I'm not telling you to go buy this machete. I'm just trying to tell you that it's probably the best one out there. It is an absolutely amazing blade. It's a small enough machete to carry pretty conveniently. I mean, it's still a big friggin' blade, but it's way smaller than an 18-inch Tremettina like this one right here, right? But it is big enough to really get the job done, and I think that it really performs outside of its weight class. That is an awesome machete right there. And now while we're on the topic of machetes, machetes are probably my favorite tool. I like large blades. I like large machetes like this heavily customized Tremettina right here with a PVC sheath made by yours truly. I like big blades like this because of how efficient they are, and where I live in the South. I live in Georgia, and where I live, there's lots of loose, hanging, viney briars and stuff that having the extra reach right there comes in really, really handy. It's difficult, like an axe. A lot of people love an axe, and I'm no different. I think an axe is a really, really valuable tool. But where I live, personally speaking, I find myself grabbing a machete like this one or like this one way more often simply because of the environment that I live in. Your results may vary. But a machete allows you to get down there and cut briars and thorns and clear your campsite out really, really efficiently without you having to bend over so far. The longer the blade, obviously, the easier it is, but eventually it becomes a little bit unwieldy and a little bit more exhausting to use. I always wrap paracord on my blades like that so I can choke up closer to the center balance point of the blade, and that allows me to do more delicate, small little carving, chopping like tasks. And it makes it just a little bit more multi-purpose, more versatile. In the comments section, tell me what your favorite cutting tool is. What's your favorite? An axe, a machete, a kukri? I used a kukri one time when I went to Belize. I spent about 3 weeks, I think it was, in the country of Belize, and I just roamed aimlessly. I was just a homeless vagabond for a few weeks. We hitchhiked on the top of dump trucks, literally full of dirt, going through the jungle, dodging branches and stuff, trying to smack us in the face. And I carried a kukri with me because I thought a kukri was going to be the ideal cutting tool. But what I discovered was it was just a little bit too heavy and cumbersome for the type of terrain, the jungle that I was working in. And it wasn't necessary. I didn't need the heavier axe-like capabilities of a kukri. A thin-bladed machete would have served me much better in that environment. Let's talk about axes, though. I think an axe is an amazing tool. I don't typically carry one when I'm on foot, just because of how big and heavy they are. Yes, you can carry like a small hatchet, but I mean, really, the purpose of a small hatchet, you could do that just about everything with a knife, in my opinion. So, if I want an axe, I want a real axe to chop and split and do axe-like tasks. This inexpensive, I've got two axes right here, and neither one of them are expensive. This is a Fiskars that I have literally had at least 20 years. At least 20 years, probably longer. I can't quite remember when I bought this. I think I might have been in high school when I bought this axe, and I think it was about 30 bucks at the time. This is a Fiskars out of Finland. It has a pretty much indestructible handle. I mean, look at this. You can't break the thing. Just like my truck, you can't break the thing. It is bomb-proof, and it has really, really worked for a long time. I use it for pounding stuff, beating on stuff, construction projects where I need to hit a post, and I need that post to move this far, but there's 1,000 pounds of weight sitting on top of it. I'll take this axe and I'll smack the crap out of it. For that reason, this axe has been really, really handy, and I've used it a lot for that purpose right there alone. despite it having a cutting edge. It just makes a really good whacker. This axe right here is a Collins axe. Really inexpensive. I don't know how much these cost. They're not expensive at all. Are they made from the highest quality, best steel? No, but they get the job done. And it has a convex edge like most of your axes. Convex is my preferred grind, even on knives. It looks kind of like this. It's kind of rounded. That's a little bit exaggerated, obviously, but it's a little bit rounded as opposed to like this. That's a finer, more easily damaged edge, regardless of what kind of edge you're talking about, Scandinavian grinds or whatever. But a convex edge that you typically find in an axe is a really durable edge. And even with a not so good steel, it holds its edge longer because of its geometry. So this Collins axe, I really like it. The handle is slimmer than your typical axe, and I really appreciate that. It means you don't have to hold on. It doesn't wear your hands out when you're using it a lot. Putting lots of hours in it. I've chopped down big trees with this axe right here, and it has worked quite well. So look at the top of this axe right here. I like this handle so much, I haven't wanted to fix it. It was a little bit loose, right? It had just a tiny little bit of a wobble, which drives me crazy. I tried soaking it in oil. That helped to some degree, but it still was kind of working loose a little bit. I put a step wedge in there, an extra step wedge. That didn't quite fix it. I drove a couple of deck screws down in there, and that fixed it. Sure. Is it a little redneck? Sure. Is it gonna irritate the axe purist out there that only uses the finest Swedish axes? Of course. But I'm okay with that. Axes, love them. I think they're great tools for splitting tests. And if you're in the far north somewhere where the wood is frozen and you need to cut in deep to the, oops, put that on backwards. And you need to put away some real firewood, an axe is gonna be a really, really handy tool, and I would definitely wanna have one in an environment like that. I better put some sheaths on here before I start cutting myself. Look at this custom sheath, PVC. I made this out of a great big 4-inch drain pipe, PVC pipe. Cut some drain holes all through it right there. Use some aluminum rivets. And that's a ratchet strap. Look at that. Now let's think outside the box a little bit. It doesn't have to be a knife, a axe, or a hatchet or something like that to be a cutting tool. This shovel right here, this is one of the special forces, Russian special forces shovels. And they're pretty handy, actually. I mean, if you sharpen the edge on this happens to be a titanium one, and it is super light, really, really lightweight, isn't gonna rust on you. I can throw it out into the ocean, and it's not gonna rust on me, which is really nice, pretty ideal, actually, because I like low maintenance. I don't know about you, but I don't like to work on stuff. I don't want to have to oil everything up all the time. I like it when it just stays the way that it is. And a shovel like this is pretty dang handy for a lot of situations right there. Now, is it as good as a great big full-size shovel like this one? Absolutely not, but which one would you want to carry with you if you had to carry it? I think that goes without being said. So having a small shovel like this, a portable one, I can get a lot of work done in a very short period of time. Now, I know this is soft sand. I get it. Humor me. But it's still better than using my paws here, okay? A shovel like that is pretty dang handy, and I can do some light chopping, some hacking, just like you could do with a machete. Not quite as well as a machete for that purpose, but still gets the job done. So it's kind of a multi-tool, and I do like that. A very robust, strong, sturdy, simple multi-tool. And for that reason, I really like it. And if you get bored, you could play horseshoes. Boom! Ringer! Now, personally, I'm a fixed blade kind of guy. If you're talking about a knife, I like a fixed blade knife just because they're so much simpler, they're more durable, they're gonna stand up to hard use. It's a lifetime tool, a lifetime investment, and I appreciate that about fixed blade knives. If you're a folder, you like the folding knives with the pocket clips and all that, fine, but I've lost quite a bit of knives with pocket clips before. Not my thing. You do you. This is my knife design right here, also made by Bear Forest Knives, called the On3 EDC. It is designed to be big enough to get 99.9% of the knife jobs done, but small enough to carry with you every single day and you don't even really notice it's there. It's got a 2 3/4 inch blade and a 3 3/4 inch handle, big enough to get all your fingers, your whole paw wrapped around that thing. and it's an 1/8" steel blade right there, 52-100 ball bearing steel, and it has a convex edge like we talked about before, which makes it last a long time without having to resharpen the thing. Talk to any guy out there that uses and abuses his tools. That's not a collector of knives. That's not your bushcrafter that's just doing the fine feather sticks and posing for the Instagram pictures. I'm not picking on anybody, but I'm picking on you. If you use and abuse your tools, ask anybody. A convex edge is really, really handy. Even if the knife doesn't come with a convex edge, after years and years of sharpening a tool, most of the time it ends up getting that convex edge anyway, and it just holds up longer. I've cut insulation with this. I've pried paint cans open. I've pulled staples out of boards with this thing. I have cut anything and everything that you can think of. I've field dressed a deer from the forest, walking around being Bambi, to in the freezer. I have taken a deer from start to finish with this knife right here, and I have never had a single complaint out of it. Stays sharp a long time, but when I do need to touch it up, I will use a fine diamond stone like this. This one has two sides. It's got a coarse side and a fine side. I almost never ever use the coarse side, except maybe on the machetes if I hit like a rock or something on the ground. I might use the coarse side for a minute, but I use the fine side, and I'll just very lightly touch up my edge. Typically like that, just a few strokes, generally speaking, gets it back to where it needs to be, to a serviceable edge where it scrapes my thumbnail like that. And that's, for the most part, what I do with all of my cutting tools, is that right there. Just a few strokes on a diamond blade or a diamond stone like that, and it's back in action. This is a pretty awesome knife I have not had a whole lot of time with yet. This is the Super Bear. Garrett from Bear Force Knives just sent me this knife. It's a prototype of his. It's not out yet, but I'm testing this thing out. I'm using it. I'm abusing it, or at least I plan to. I'm going to try to break the thing. And he's using a new steel called Super 9, Sup 9. It's pretty cool. I don't know. Look into it. I don't know much about it yet, but I'm going to put this knife through its paces. Knife in the sand. That's like the worst thing you could possibly do to a knife. March 29th and 30th. Myself and Stoker-Matic, whom you might know from the YouTubes, we're getting together and we're going to be teaching a class. It's going to be a land nav class / survival class where you're going to be navigating through the forests of North Georgia, Blairsville, Georgia, through the forests of North Georgia, and you're going to have to find the materials, the tools that you will need to survive the weekend ordeal. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, look in the description, look in the comment section, and I'll try to provide all the necessary links so you can sign up for that class. Multi-tools. I like multi-tools. I think they're great. They're a little bit big and bulky and heavy to carry in your pocket all the time, in my opinion. So I don't, but I do keep them handy. I keep them in the door of my truck. I keep them in my packs. I have it close by because just having a pair of pliers or a screwdriver is really, really handy. But the knives, the blades are typically a stainless steel. Typically not that easy to sharpen. There's a little bit of wonkiness here, a little bit of wobbliness that I don't like in the blade because it's a folder. But, you know, if you need to cut a thing, cut some tape, cut some cordage, whatever, scribe something, poke something, gouge something, this blade will get the job done. This is a Leatherman Rev. It may be the cheapest Leatherman out there. Not sure. It's one of the cheaper ones. I think they're like 40 bucks. And it has all the things that you need for the most part. Just that pair of pliers alone, right there, with the wire cutters on it, is just about the handiest thing on the multi-tool. So for that reason, I like the Leatherman. Now, let's talk emergency stuff. You've lost everything. I've lost all my cutting tools. I'm lost in the middle of the wilderness, surrounded by aliens. Life as we know it is coming to an end, and I've got nothing, but I've got to figure out a way to survive. If I'm wearing a pair of pants, except for right now, I'm typically wearing a belt. If I have pants on, I've got my belt on. I choose to wear a Wazoo Cash belt right here. Why? Because it's got all the necessities, and I can carry it with me every single day, and I don't even know that I've got it on, essentially. It's like an insurance policy, in my opinion. If you travel to remote places, if you're in wild places, or maybe you're just in the city and you're expecting, in any moment now, chaos could go down, and you just need some tools at your disposal to make life a little less terrible. this is the way to do it. And in my belt, since we're on the subject of knives, on this side of my belt right here, I have a spare blade and a fire starter right there. This is a small little ferro rod and a teeny tiny little ceramic blade. But trust me, my friends, when I tell you that this thing is sharp. It is scalpel sharp. It's got a chisel grind on it. It's got a chisel grind, and this thing is wicked sharp. It'll lay you open if you're not careful with it because of how sharp it is. I've cut through pretty good sized saplings about this big before with this tiny little thing. I've gutted fish with it before. I've cut paracord. I have, you name it. I've done fire prep. I've created some tinder with this little thing before. It's ceramic, so it's brittle. It's got to be a little bit careful with it. But there's nothing sharper out there. The sharpest scalpels on the planet are made out of either obsidian or ceramic like this. This thing is really sharp. So here's a garden hose. This is the pump that I use to pump vegetable oil into my truck. And you can see how sharp this little ceramic knife is by cutting into this ceramic hose. Watch that slice. I'm not putting much pressure, just a little bit. And you can see how sharp that little guy is. It is a tiny little scalpel. It's pretty, barely pushing and it does that. It doubles as your striker for your ferro rod. So if you take it off this little key ring here and you close up the blade like that, it's exposed right there, just a little bit, the back of it, not the sharp part, but the back of it. And you can use that to strike your tiny little ferro rod, which is very effective, especially if you've got some pre-made tinder on you, which I do have in my belt. I think having the back of your knife 90 degrees like this is pretty important because, yeah, while you can scrape and scratch things and prep tinder and whatnot with the blade edge of your knife, having a 90 degree sharp spine like that you could process, it saves the edge. If you're scraping something at 90 degrees to the angle or to the blade, eventually you're going to get that thing pretty dull. It's kind of hard on a blade to work like that if you're not slicing with it as it's designed to. But this 90 degree spine is really durable and it's pretty effective at scraping tinders and barks and all that kind of stuff. So having a 90 degree spine on the back of your knife I think is pretty good, and obviously it's really good at striking a ferro rod. Gotta put my daggum belt back on. My daggum pants fall off. My probably most used cutting tool is probably this On3 EDC that I keep on my belt because it's handy, it's convenient, it's always there. Next to that, maybe a machete. Probably use this machete more than any other of my cutting tools. An axe from time to time, not that much, but if we're talking about getting firewood, if that's my goal, I just want firewood. It is really hard to beat a saw like this one right here. There's lots of different kinds out there, buck saws, folding saws, all kinds of different ways of going about this, but this Silky Big Boy right here is just about the perfect portable but big enough size to where I can get some really good sized firewood going. This thing can cut through a lot of firewood in a really, really short period of time. And for that reason, I always keep it in my truck. I've got one in my pack as well, my bigger pack that I keep in my truck. They are really, really handy. It's a whole lot safer. You can get cut with a saw for sure, and they're nasty. If you ever cut your hand or something like that, or your leg or whatever with a saw like this, yowza, it hurts, it is hideous looking, but rarely is it lethal. You can really, really hurt yourself with a tool like this. All that heavy weight with a razor's edge flying out there at 100 miles an hour, if it glances off at an inappropriate angle at an inappropriate time, it can really hurt you. I was chopping wood one time. I was like this. I was on my knees. Let's say this is the wood, right? I was chopping through a branch like that with a shorter axe. It was about this long, small little handled axe. I was chopping through it like this, and my brother looks at me. He's up here. He's standing here, like right where you are. He goes, "Hey, is that thing sharp?" And I chop, and I look up at him, and I say, "Yep." And it goes, ka-chow. It glances off the wood and goes, wham, into my leg, right above my kneecap. It cut through my pants, and at this point, I was thinking to myself, that didn't feel good. I might be in trouble. So I'm still on my knees. I put the axe down and I tear my pants the rest of the way so I can see what's going on. And there's this huge opening in my leg with the meat all laid open, all grisly looking, like you just cut into a raw steak. So I stretch my leg out, I tear my pants a little bit more, and then I realize I'm in a lot of trouble. I should probably go get stitches. So much for the Thanksgiving Day party that we were having. So a saw is much, much safer, really efficient to use, especially if you're trying to gather firewood. So for that reason, I like a saw a lot. Friends, I'd love to hear what you think about this in the comment section. Let me know what your favorite cutting tools are. Be specific as you want. Let me know what the type is, the brand is, the type of grind that you like on your knives. Are you a machete guy? Are you an axe guy? I'd love to talk about this stuff in the comment section. I'd be grateful for each and every single one of those. If you haven't subscribed already, please do hit the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future content coming out. I've started a brand new channel. It's called Fit on 3. So if you're into fitness, if you're into being physically prepared for whatever life may throw at you, make sure you subscribe to Fit on 3. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description and in the comment section. And until next time, friends, what's the worst that could happen? Let's go on 3.